A good morning to all my friends around the world, be they of any religion, caste, or creed. Today, I have some very sad news in pointing out the way how things are going around the world because of racial interests, national interests, and other interests which are so manifest they cannot be put together. For a long time I have been speaking about the incursions into Islam by a hostile West. The famous saying that one swallow does not a summer make was taken up with the conflagration predicted between nations of Islam and Christianity. Whether they have proved to be right or not, we're now coming to a stage where it is becoming obvious that things will take up and heat up to such an extent that the legendary Mahalma will devolve upon the Arab world. Why do I say Arab world? Because I've said earlier, Islamic world has been rent asunder, and already the price is being paid. About the only powerful Islamic leader to emerge, Erdogan of Turkey, is slowly being crippled into the ground as we speak today. In Ankara, he has lost the local body elections. Meanwhile, the tragedy was when the IOS became the Arab League and the Arab League became the Gulf Council. Well, it seems that now they no longer have Qatar willing to be a yes-sayer on the council. Oman is in the same way. Yemen, they recognize even one man out of one house and say he represents Yemen. That's fine. But before they dismember Iraq, because the Arabs did show some spine on that issue, they found it easier to condemn Syria and condemn Syria. The Arab League has forgotten that besides dismembering the IOS member Indonesia, despite the rendering and, shall we say, the distribution of the Sudan, the largest country on the African continent and a great Muslim nation, from the Arab League. So at that time they withdrew into their shell as a Gulf Coordinating Council. They've now re-emerged to fell Syria with one mighty swoop. Unfortunately, when the troubles started in Syria, I said, who gave the rebels the arms? Though personally myself, I felt we'd had enough of Bashar Assad. Then, when that didn't work, the most powerful city in Syria, Halab, Aleppo, was condemned to utter destruction. And the reason for that is that Halab was always a rival to Jerusalem power. And Halab also gained immense power from the Khazars of Turkey. Because in case you don't know, there was a rival Jewish kingdom in what is now Turkey, parts of Turkey, called the Khazars. They ruled for 500 years. And previously it was thought that the Ashkenazis, who now control Israel, came from the Khazar territories, they've taken great lengths to refute that, saying only 5% of the Ashkenazis are Khazars, the rest are Jews from Jerusalem. Well, I'm not going into that. But what is very obvious is that there is an outright attempt. They destroyed sections. When that didn't work, they crippled Syria by allowing in ISIS. Who gave the money, the armory, the weaponry, and the kickstart to ISIS? This should be one of the investigations, and doesn't surprise me. Happened in India under Indira Gandhi. She took out one of her lieutenants, and Sant Fateh Singh Bandrambale, ultimately she had him shot down by her troops. So who started ISIS? Who gave ISIS the Great Philip and recognition? And when that is now been successfully foiled, who is putting in the new decoys to take Syria apart? Well, let me tell you, it has started. The Israelis have announced the annexation of the Golan Heights. The Arabs that control the IOS did not bother to call the IOS. They bothered to call the Arab League. And that also in Tunisia, which is very important because it's on the Mediterranean. And they found they could get moral support from the West, is what they sought and received. Now, very interesting. I won't speak of the Muslim world because it was not to their interest. They may have suspended Syria from their ranks, but Arab country. And sad to say, the only whimper that came out of Tunisia's conference was that we will not accept what has been done in Syria's annexation of property. Is that enough? Well, I think when the great king Faisal spoke at Lahore and thereafter showed in acts and deeds and stopped the oil to the West, bringing them to the negotiating table, he showed the power that the Arab Saudi king could have on Islam specifically. Unfortunately, within 2 years, he was assassinated. And then all of them were, one way or another, got rid of. Shah of Iran, Wari Boumediene of Algeria, much later Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, Bhutto in Pakistan. Everywhere there was strong Muslim leadership, it was annulled. One way or another. I use the word annulled. Well, the question is, maybe the current lot. First of all, there are no bright stars in the sky over Islam. I would have to say that Erdogan would perhaps be the only one that had the strength to stand in the fashion he is standing. And Iran as a nation has, of course, proven over time its credibility. But the question is that under various guises, things are being done as usual. Iran was made the enemy, Yemen was breached, Syria, and now is the important question. Syria, because it has saved Iraq from being dismembered. But Syria is to be first. The dismembering has already started. By taking away the Golan Heights, a part of Syria has gone. And sadly, the whimper that came out of Tunisia, nobody's even going to bother about it. Yes, if they said, we no longer will have relations with any embassy going to Jerusalem, we will break diplomatic relations, that would have caused havoc. And then to say, any country that recognizes Jordan as a part of Israel, we will immediately break diplomatic relations, then there would be chaos. Neither of the two have happened. Even with an Arab agenda, with the horrible mess with Bouteflika in Algiers, the King of Saudi Arabia and so many more could have gone in a plane and spoken to him, set yourself down, let democracy, let the younger generation take over, you are far too old, you can't hear, you can't see, go home. Well, he didn't do that. Nobody bothered about that. With so many Arab issues of great importance which have been ignored at Tunis. First of all, why not the Islamic Organization of Countries was called? Why is only the Arab League called? Well, okay, it is an Arab problem inasmuch that the Jordan was Syrian, Arab. So the dismemberment of Syria has started. Please remember my words. You cannot ignore them anymore. And this dismemberment has to lead to the annihilation of all countries that find any succor in Iran. Because when Jerusalem grows in stature against Medina, the Prophet had predicted that there will be a Mahalama, which is a great uprising. And the Arabs will not be able to fight that. It will be the old province of Khorasan, which now is Iran, Pakistan and Afghanistan, that will come to the rescue. Well, people may or may not believe that, but that is what was predicted 1300, 1400 years ago. And one would wish the best to a world not to go into this sort of an intricacy of a war, because you can cripple everyone one by one, but there is something that might emerge. The Arabs might suddenly find their lost pride. It's not something that you should risk. And in my belief, I think that world players should get in and subdue the matter. And these are all precursors to what have been predicted. The third temple's going up. The elders of putting up the third temple, the 70 elders, have been summoned. The chamber has been set to biblical proportions. And this is where they took the Secretary of the United States, Pompeo, sorry, not Pompeo, and showed him how they are starting the entire proceedings. Those proceedings will destroy mosques and churches. Does not sound good, does not look good. I do believe that the Arabs in Tunis have been lured into this with such finesse and willingness on their part that this great betrayal will live in infamy in history. And I'm not surprised the Emir of Qatar left before the proceedings. He must have got a whiff of it, what evil is being planned there. So this is what is there. To my friends in the West, I say, please intervene. Do not let this go further. Yes, they are helpless and totally hopeless, but they're human beings. Look what's happening in Qatar. Look what's happened in Gaza. Look what's happening everywhere you put your eyes upon the Muslim world. Even if they didn't want to go against you, Huntington spooked the issue, and then a series of great betrayals of principle are leading them astray. Don't let that happen. Don't let the single gunman in New Zealand dictate your character and principles. It's not true, and I know it. But I see the destruction of Syria. If you couldn't have it the way you wanted it, after all of North Africa, well, you will then bring it to its knees. It's happened, as I said, in Bosnia, in Sudan, in Syria. Syria is near polarization towards a breakup because the powers that be created counterpowers. I think that's enough for a day. I'll get back to you much later. Thank you.